New series out now. Can you tell us about Walker Independence and your character Abby?
Yeah, absolutely. So Walker Independence follows the story of its the origin story of the Walker Texas Ranger franchise. So the first Walkers in Texas, which happens to be Abigail Walker. Uh, we find Abigail when she is journeying from Boston to Texas with her husband. And within the first 15 minutes of the show, her entire life literally burns up in front of her.
Yeah,
But what's interesting is we get to see a woman of this time make a choice whether to fall victim to her circumstance or to create her own life and start fresh, even though it might not have been the life she imagined for herself. It's perhaps the life she was always meant to have.
perfect segue to this next question. But like you were saying, when we're introduced to Abby, she's presented with this horrible tragedy and has to make a choice. And you're handling that journey with so much nuance. As an actress, how did you create the space for yourself to dive into the emotional arc that's going to unfold in season one?
I think it's a very human thing. Grief is something that everyone can relate to on some level. Everyone's
Yeah.
lost someone or something or been through those phases in their life. And it's just very interesting to see a woman of the time get to go through this, but in a very different way than you would normally see. Or at least what we hope to be building is different than what we've seen in the past. But it's exciting to get to see that, and as well, a lot of it's the world that we get to have. Every single person on this set put such heart and such passion into it. And as you're building this character, it's so much of the story is about the town and about the community and about independence and all of these characters and how they interact. And each character relationship brings out such different colors in each of us. And as you peel back the layers of these characters, you get to learn so much more about them and why they're in independence and what drives them. But what's interesting with Abby is that, yes, she is this very straight-laced Bostonian woman of society and has a very strong moral compass. But as we know, justice in the West is never clean cut. It's
Yeah.
messy. It forces you to make choices and make sacrifices and do things that are not necessarily morally sound all the time. And it'll be interesting to see as we progress what Abby is and isn't willing to sacrifice.
Definitely. And this show is bringing such a fresh take to this beloved genre, and it's representing the world as it is and was. In what other ways is Walker Independence reimagining Westerns? And did you feel that responsibility as you brought this much needed representation to the screen?
Oh, 100%. I mean, what people love about Westerns is that danger and that romance and that nostalgia that comes with the genre. But what I thought was so brilliant that, Larry Tang brought visually and Seamus Kevin Fahey is bringing with the story is that it paints the world in, as you said, what we hope to be a much more historically accurate version of
Yeah.
what the West actually was. It's not, sepia tone and it's not bland, and it's so brilliant and beautiful. And the richness of the color that we're bringing in the wardrobe and the set and the literally the nature around us itself, and the music is adding such energy, and then the fact that we're getting to shed light on perspectives and stories that existed but their stories have never been properly told,
Mm.
or at least that we've seen. We're hoping to sort of reinvent the Western in a lot of ways and in that respect.
Definitely are. Because of the pandemic, you did all of your chemistry reads over Zoom, which I imagine is a challenge in itself, but you would never know that based on the chemistry that we're seeing on screen. Was there a moment on set while you were filming where you realized you guys were creating magic and that you had that special bond needed for each of these individual relationships?
It's so interesting that you asked that question because it wasn't in person. It happened before. Um, the first person on the cast that I met was Matt Barr. We met over Zoom doing a chemistry session, and instantly I wasn't expecting this, but instantly I went, "Oh, this is someone that is going to be an amazing partner in this, and someone that I would love to work with for years." And Matt has been nothing but incredible since. He's just the loveliest human being, but also really puts heart and soul into what we're doing. And I remember initially, before any of us even got to Santa Fe, we all got on a Zoom together to just say hi and talk through kind of how production was going to go and what we all needed to do and things like this. And I'll never forget that Zoom because for some reason there was this energy and this synergy and this
Mm.
chemistry from moment one. And that's continued throughout. So, I couldn't ask for a better group of people to be on the trail with, as it were, from our cast to our crew to everyone else involved.
Love that metaphor. You've brought so many dynamic and powerful female characters to life. Who were the women in your own life who shaped the artist you are today?
Oh goodness. Well, it's that's sort of a twofold answer for me. I was raised in a family of women that are incredibly resilient and intelligent and never asked the question career or family. You know, if
Mm,
whatever each of them wanted for their lives, they pursued it with reckless abandon. And not only are they incredible scientists and doctors and artists and everything in between, but they're also mothers and sisters and aunts and cousins and people that dedicate so much heart to their family as much, if not more, than they dedicate to their career. And growing up in that environment was so instrumental to not only the person that I am, but the characters that I play. And then if you want to talk, solely entertainment industry, one of the first jobs I ever did outside of Kansas City was a Little Night Music on Broadway. And we had Catherine Zeta-Jones and Angela Lansbury as our leading ladies, and they left, and Bernadette Peters and Elaine Stritch came into the show. And getting to work with, I was, 14 years old at the time, and getting to work with these four powerhouse women who were just such brilliant examples of how to be caring and compassionate toward everyone they were working with, but also bring this fire to the stage every single night, 8 shows a week. It taught me so much about how to balance that and how to, play characters that followed in their stead.
beautifully said. And this is a character unlike any that we've seen you do in the past. Is there a particular scene or episode that you're really excited for your fans to see as the season unfolds?
Oh, that's so interesting. There's some things in episode 2 that I'm very excited for. And there's at least a scene every episode. I'd say episode 7 is particularly interesting for steps being taken for Abby. But what's exciting about this show is that we get to meet each of these characters and see their relationships form and see how the West shapes them, but also how they shape the world that's building. Because the West is so nuanced and so reckless in so many ways and undefined. And you get to see these people in this unincorporated town in Texas build the world that they want to live in and the world that they want to leave behind. So getting to see how that interaction, the set and the world and our environment is such a character in the show. It's exciting to see how that unfolds and how everyone develops throughout the series based on that.
Yeah, like you were saying, this show is so grounded in the relationships that we're going to see on the show. Was there one in particular that you were really, really excited to dive into? If we're lucky enough to get a season 2, which we definitely are going to be, is there another one that you would further like to explore in season 2?
All of them, truly. And that's that. I know that it sounds like a cop out answer, but you can even see in the pilot, there's
Yeah.
as Abby walks through town in that first scene and meets Hoyt and meets Deputy Augustus and meets Kai and we get to see such a beautiful friendship form with Callian as well and bumps into Hoyt. And even, her sort of this cat and mouse that she's playing with Tom Davidson. And there's many, many, many more characters that we get to meet along the way as well. It really is. I've never had so many distinctly different and deep character relationships on a show that as it unfolds, there's so much there. And I think all of us are so obsessed with these character relationships as well, that
Yeah.
we all have little side plots and little side things that happen off screen that we have for ourselves, and we try and put little Easter eggs of in as the series goes on. But I'll be interested because I don't get to hear much until I get the scripts as to what's coming next. So I will be very curious to see how things develop as myself.
You're part of such a unique project last year with Untitled movie, which found you stepping behind the camera as well. Has your experience working on that project changed the way that you've now approached your work on screen?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I already was looking at, I shadowed some directors on Arrow, and I've been
Yeah.
talking since Shadowhunters about directing. And it's, something I've done a lot of studying and something I definitely would like to do very soon. But Untitled Horror Movie was entirely different because I had to learn so many of the
Yeah.
technical things about filmmaking that I had seen and I had asked questions about. But there's a big difference between knowing and being able to watch the professionals who do this every day and understanding what they're doing versus I'm in my apartment by myself trying not to mess up this movie and figure out where to put the light and how to place the camera and how to, transfer the footage onto the hard drive and not lose everything that everyone's worked so hard to do. But moving forward, it's definitely something that's changed the way that I work and the way that I do self tapes, the way that I set up for interviews, and hopefully the way that I look at and think about directing and filmmaking myself moving forward.
Great answer. And I don't think you get enough credit for the genuine connections that you've made with your fans and the community that you've fostered through all of your projects, specifically with Shadowhunters. When you signed on for that project in particular, could you have imagined the legacy that you would have created?
Oh, I don't think I even did. I mean, yeah, we knew it was going to be special and we knew it was highly anticipated, if nothing else. I grew up reading, YA fantasy fiction, and I know what those characters mean to people. I grew up with characters like that. I hadn't read The Mortal Instruments until I was in the audition process, but I knew how special these sort of characters are to people and how special this particular story is to so many. And I instantly fell in love with the world and with the story and was so grateful that, the book and film fandom welcomed us in and came on this journey with us. And then since then we've accumulated so many other wonderful
Yeah.
folks, and I have to credit the Shadow fam with it. Honestly, yes, we got the opportunity to tell this beautiful story, but they took the fandom beyond us and beyond the story and beyond the show and created this beautiful space of love and acceptance and joy and art in so many other ways, that still exists. And that's the reason that we still do Comic Cons. That's the reason that the
Yeah.
podcast exists. That's the reason that so many people have found friendships and these support groups and so many things that mean more than the story that we got to tell. And that to me is the most special, and the biggest responsibility that I've ever had in my career.
I have a kind of cheeky question for you, but like you're saying, you're always finding new ways to connect with your fans, whether that's through conventions, through podcasting. You're also a lead of a show. How do you have time? How do you balance all of this?
I don't sleep much. I'm lucky in that I've never needed much sleep, but just to give a more serious answer, I dedicate my time to things that I care about and things that are extremely worthwhile to me. And it's the Marie Kondo time
Mm,
management philosophy, I guess. If it sparks joy, if it means something to myself or to someone else, then to me it's worth doing. And it's not always easy, but it's worth it in the end because you get to build something, whether it's making a TV show or a podcast or my own side projects or doing fan art Friday for a few minutes on
yeah.
social media or going to a Comic-Con on the other side of the world. It means something in the end, and hopefully we'll leave something that is a source of positivity for someone in this world.
I got two more questions for you. You've had so much success already in your young career. When you look back, is there a particular moment that stands out to you?
Oh goodness. I think I hope it hasn't happened yet. And
Hmm.
it's something I'm always trying to build and grow and challenge myself and to challenge the people that I'm, building things with to create stories that continue to push the envelope and push boundaries and cause us to grow as artists and as people as well. But if I had to pick a moment so far, our first New York Comic Con will always be super special. It was the first Comic Con I'd ever been to, and we just finished filming season 1 of Shadowhunters, and nobody had seen any of the show, and nobody had seen anything. We hadn't had a chance to really interact with the fandom yet, and I remember we saw the first 7 minutes of the show for the first time in reverse, standing behind the screen that the fans were watching on the other side. We were about to go on stage for our panel, and just getting to not only see this first 7 minutes of this thing we'd worked so hard on and poured our blood, sweat, and tears into, but to get to hear the fan reactions for the first time live and hear their gasps and their laughs and their screams and their cheers, and to feel that passion that we had put into it be reflected in the joy that they felt in watching, these first just a tiny little tidbit. I've never felt magic like that. And that was the first time, and it's continued since then. So just I'm eternally grateful and truly humbled by every single one of those experiences.
And speaking of chasing those projects, you're such a dynamic storyteller. As you look ahead to the next 5 to 10 years, is there a dream role or story that you would love to bring to life, either as an actor or a director or a writer?
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of them, and there's certain ones I'm working on and chasing as we speak, and others I hope I couldn't tell you what they are because I'm sure they haven't even been written yet.
Mm,
But I think what I look for are things that challenge me and
yeah.
things that when I read a script, it's something I've never done in one way or another. You know, whether it's a certain type of character or a headspace or an emotional arc or a time period or a genre or a director, you know, or a producer or a writer that's I find particularly inspiring. But I just want to keep growing and keep learning and keep being the chameleon that I've gotten to be up until this point. And that's the only goal that I have in my career, and I hope to be able to continue to do that.